What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering. A huge shout out to the Mug Club viewers and the viewers of Steven Crowder, a man that I've gotten to know over the past couple of years, a man that's always looked out for me when he was able to. And thus, I will cover what I believe to be a unjust suspension. Last night, news broke. I was speaking to him directly about it. That his channel had been suspended for a period of 1 week, receiving a hard strike over his coverage of what I can see was a news event. However, a news event that is in one of those topic areas that is extremely sensitive on YouTube. A topic that is almost just you can't talk about it, even if you're being factual. There's like no room for error. And apparently that proved itself last night as a stunning email released. Truly, the language used in this email is very concerning as to the real reason why Steven Crowder was suspended. So Steven Crowder gets suspended from YouTube. The reason why is frightening. This is, of course, their own coverage. I've got coverage from a few other places, too, to try and be unbiased. Earlier today, we received notification that one of our videos was removed from YouTube. The special guest, Alex Jones, and Joe Rogan Triggers Leftist. But now we all know the generic email. Blah, 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 blah. Some generic note about violating speech. Blah, blah, blah. We know this is disappointing for you. You're suspended for a week. It wasn't until Louder with Crowder legal counsel, William Richmond, received an email from YouTube directly that we began to get an idea why we were suspended. A vague idea, a very vague idea. Now, this email itself is very bizarre. You know, the YouTube itself has their legal team responding on a particular suspension, but here it is. We write again on YouTube's behalf regarding your client, Steven Crowder. YouTube has repeatedly instructed Mr. Crowder regarding its mean speech policy and warned him against continuing violations of that policy through the content he uploaded to YouTube. This is the problem with the mean speech rules. Like, they're always changing. They're always evolving. And it seems like only one side of the aisle seems to be affected by it. You know, that may not be entirely true, but it seems that way. YouTube is specifically informed Mr. Crowder that the videos he uploaded showed a pattern of recklessly targeting the LGBTQ plus community for insults and mean words. It warned that further uploading of content that targets insults. So now they're basically saying you can't even insult people online, and or is mean to the LGBTQ plus community will result in additional penalties. Look, I know sometimes Steven's jokes are they seem mean-spirited. I don't personally think they are, but I would understand why some people might. In this particular case, it just proves that there are certain things that are just off limits on YouTube. The reason why, of course, is very, very concerning. On September 30th, Mr. Crowder uploaded another video that YouTube determined continues his prior conduct. The video, entitled blah, 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 contains a segment that targets the trans community in an offensive manner. For example, by indicating that trans folks pose a threat to women. Now, what was this about? Well, excuse me. This is covering a news event where somebody was either using or taking advantage of, particular, essentially a biological man wore a dress and did what people feared most to another student. I think they did it twice, allegedly. I don't know if that person is actually trans or if they were just, using that to gain access. That I'm unsure of at this time. Consistent with recklessness, provisions of its hate speech policy, YouTube has removed the video from the service and assessed a strike against the Steven Crowder channel. Per YouTube strike's policy, this results in a 1-week upload freeze for the channel. Further violation of YouTube's hate speech policy will result in additional penalties. One additional note, when an account is restricted from YouTube features, the channel operator is prohibited from using other channels to get around applicable restrictions. Your client may not use another YouTube channel, such as Crowder Bits, to bypass upload restrictions on Steven Crowder channel. Such conduct may subject all of his channels to termination. This is a very sensitive topic, but I wonder, if we're going to rule out certain topics of discussion, I don't think that necessarily does any good for said community. This has been my opinion. I'm willing to, be proven wrong about it. But I feel like when you say, hey, there's this group of people that you're not allowed to cover in a negative light, because that's how it feels. Okay. Now, if there is something that he said specifically, okay, that violated this, okay, but that is not what was communicated to him. Presently, they write, we're not quite sure of the exact offense. We've requested time codes for the offending content. During the September 30th show, we discussed an article about female inmates now pregnant. We talked about, this is the crazy world we live in, right? Biological men going to prison with women. How many of them are actually biological men, and how many of them, there's all sorts of, uncomfortable conversations to have around these type of things. And I would be lying if I didn't admit to you all that it is scary to cover that kind of stuff. There's being wrong, okay, and then getting flack for that, which is bad, but you get over it. You grow as a human. But then there's like having your entire livelihood removed because you were wrong or because you were too flippant about something. It creates this environment where, as a content creator, it's just not even worth covering it when you have to risk so much. Now, Crowder has his mug club. I have my Subscribestar. My Subscribestar is nowhere near what like his mug club is, but he does have, the Blaze and everybody else behind him, as well as other fellow content creators like myself. But if YouTube wants to, and believe me, I believe they do, remove him, there's just nothing yet he can do about it. And the fact that we're not even given the exact reasons as content creators is extraordinarily troubling. How can you know what to avoid when it's always a moving target? They continue to write, there's a short comedy sketch after that. The news article was a report on female prisoners getting pregnant when they were sharing cells with biological men. Here's an excerpt of the news article of the story that was in the news. What is terrifying is that there is a story about somebody putting a skirt on and doing something terrible. The Daily Wire broke that news, which I talked about on my Midwestly channel. And I don't know, excuse me. I understand that much in the way that when we look at, for example, the guy with the bow and arrow yesterday, recently converted to a specific religion. When people, and then when you cover that, there is the potential for people to, extend that blame on an entire group of people. That's what YouTube is saying here, in my opinion. YouTube is saying, look, this one individual who either happens to be trans or bi or whatever it is, they did something terrible, but you're not allowed to cover it because somebody might implicate the entire group, right? That's what they're saying, in my opinion. The left and big tech's plan is clear. You will be silenced if you believe that biology is still a thing or that boys are boys and girls are girls. Look, this argument, to me is irrelevant. Biology matters. However, if somebody wants to say, again, my position has always been if you want to identify as something else and it's not infringing on anybody else's rights or hurting anybody else, I literally couldn't care less. Now, if you want to come to me and say that, biology isn't real, well, then we're going to have a discussion. But I think both opinions can exist. Both positions can exist. It doesn't do me any good to berate somebody who's just like maybe a little quirky and they say that they're a real life reincarnation of a mythical creature or something. It doesn't do me any good to berate them if they're not hurting anybody or infringing on their rights. But it is concerning that this appears to be what YouTube's policy is that you're not allowed to cover anything that a certain group of people do because it might be used to disparage the entire group. But only this group, right? Not other groups. It's actually pretty shocking. And not everybody has, the blaze to back them up. Even though I consider my content relatively tame, I am still very fearful that a slip up, a joke that maybe wasn't in good taste or something like that could take it all away. This right in the face of now Democrats introduced a Section 230 reform bill. Isn't it funny how the Democrats were against Section 230 reform while Trump was president and now suddenly they want to do it? What do you think this means? Do you think this means more or less censorship? Stand by your favorite content creators. Back them by sharing their videos and content on social media. If you're in a position to, for example, with Crowder, join his mug club. Or if you like the content I do, my subscribe stars is extremely important to this channel. There's always a link in the description below for that. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.